Hey YouTube, back with the bottom panel out of that Whiz EM pinball machine. If you're working on a similar aged machine, it's probably going to be quite similar to what you're seeing here. To get this out, you'll have to unhook everything that goes to the front right of the cabinet. So this is the way that it sits in the game. This is the front, that's the rear. But on the right side, there are 3 chime coils to undo with just 1/4 inch quick disconnects. You'll have to unscrew the power switch plate, and then there's wires that go up to the knocker and then also to the flipper cabinet switch. On the left side, you'll have to unplug your coin door, and then the wires that go up to the tilt panel. So there's one for the tilt bob, the pendulum bob, and then the roll tilt, and then for the flipper cabinet switch again. And for all of these Jones connectors, I usually use a nylon bottle brush soaked in alcohol and dip it in there to clean those out. Don't get too aggressive, those can break. But then on all your male side stuff, make sure that you clean those pins too with either sandpaper or a brass bristle brush. And then on the back side, there's going to be, you'll have to disconnect your play field with these 2 plugs back here. And again, I cleaned those Jones plugs up already. And then the bottom panel goes up and hooks into the head with these 2, and these have already been cleaned up. Now I also need to replace the power cord. I'm out of new replacements, so I have to wait for my order from PBR to come in. But for now, I've just cut them here, and I'm just going to wire nut those back into the game until I get a new power cord, and I'll replace that when it's in the game. But the original power cord is wound up in this bundle of wires, and it's tied from here to here, so I'm just going to leave that section in there and then just zip tie the new one on the outside, because this can ride there just fine and it won't hurt anything. But I don't want to start cutting this unique wire braid loom thing they got going on just to get that section of cord out. Also, some other things that you'd want to probably do while it's out. This is a normally closed slam switch or bounce switch, so if that was ever to get dirty, your game would tilt out. So I usually just, instead of having one wire go to each one of these, I just solder them there, and that means that it's always going to be closed and it should never give you any issues down the road. Also, make sure that your fuses are the correct values. For this one, we need for the coils and also the lights, we need 10 amp fuses there. And then there's a main fuse for your 120 power as well, back by the transformer. That power cord does connect, the neutral side goes to the bottom left coil of the transformer, and then the hot side goes to the switch, and then the ground goes to the frame of the transformer back there. Now for switch cleaning and adjustments, I've already gone through the switch motor. You can pull the hairpins out. So there's 3 points of mounting, and then if you pull this one out, you can flip it up. And then you need to put some 3-in-1 motor oil, the stuff that does not contain Teflon, the motor oil stuff. So this stuff, you need to lubricate that bearing pad on the bottom. That's a little felt pad that will, as you put drops of oil in there, it'll slowly absorb it. And then there's brass gears on the bottom, so don't lubricate that. Just make sure that they're clean. But then I went through and tightened all the screw stacks and cleaned all the switches. And I've always been a fan of the technique that Nick Volta used on Pinside of swabbing it with alcohol and a Q-tip, and then using that wire brush Dremel attachment to get in there and polish the contacts, and then clean it one more time with alcohol. That works really great with these longer switches, and these are what are typical in older games. But this was, mid to late 70s, and a lot of the relays in this game are actually the tiny switches. And I've had not great luck of taking these completely apart to clean them with that swab technique, and then getting them back in the correct functioning position. And I went through this whole bottom panel of relays actually before I pulled it out of the game, just to make sure that I didn't introduce any errors. Because what I decided to do, since I had such a hard time getting in there, is I tightened the switch stacks first, and then just used strips of business cards soaked in alcohol and rubbed in between those contacts, and then just checked for broken ladders and anything else that was a miss. But I kind of went 3 units at a time. So I adjusted and cleaned these 3, then I retested the game to see if it was still functioning correctly. And then if it wasn't, I knew that the error that I just created was somewhere in the last things that I touched. So once those 3 were good, I went on and kind of went segment by segment. And in total, I probably had, at the end of that, 4 total switch adjustments that I, either from cleaning or from tightening screw stacks, knocked out of whack. And it was a lot easier to know that, okay, it doesn't work, the game doesn't work now, but I know that I touched these 3 last, so the error's somewhere in here, then I could find that in the schematics. Rather than doing them all at once and then saying, oh crap, it doesn't work now, where's the problem in all of those relays? So I wouldn't suggest the swab polish swab for these just because they're so finicky. There's not a whole lot of stroke here. Like I'll try and see, you can see some of these are, so at the top there's a normally closed one, this one's a make or break, and then the bottom's a normally open one. But there's just such a tiny stroke there that you have to be really good on your adjustments, and it's almost so small that sometimes your eyeball is going to deceive you. So if your game was already working, you know that there's not going to be a whole lot of these that need to be messed with because they're pretty close to where they'll need to be when they end up. Now, other things that I'll have to do, again, waiting on a parts order. If you look at some of these relays, you can see that they're pretty cooked. So this game over relay, you can kind of see the burn mark in there. And then for the first ball relay, that holds in a lot too, so there's a burn mark there. And then on the tilt hold relay, got to figure out which one that is. Tilt hold relay, that one's starting to get a little brown, and then on the hold relay itself as well. So I'll probably order those from PBR and replace those two, just so that the owner doesn't have to worry about that. That's how jarred up they got after 50 years. I think in a home use environment, the new ones will outlast 50 years. But I think that's pretty much it on the bottom panel here. I'll have to throw it back into the game and see if I introduced any errors. Again, I knew that all of these were working, so unless I bumped something while working on the score motor, if I did introduce any mistakes, it should be somewhere on the score motor. All right, we'll get this back in the game and test out the playfield.